Welcome to another episode of The Breakdown. Today, we're very fortunate to have a very special guest. We're sitting down with the MLA for St. Albert, Marie Renaud, who's also the Shadow Minister for Community and Social Services, a portfolio that we've definitely seen a whole lot of action in over the last couple of weeks. So we're going to chat with her a little bit about AISH. We're going to chat with her a little bit about a campaign that she's going on to try to highlight what's been going on with AISH, and probably a couple other topics. So Marie, thank you so much for being willing to sit down with us today.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
How's Edmonton?
Good. There's a little construction going on outside my condo, but other than that, good. The weather looks good. Other than infection rates are escalating, so I think people are a little conscious of that. But other than that, pretty good.
Well, hopefully people start making some better choices across the province in a lot of different ways. So you are the Shadow Minister for Community and Social Services.
Yep, I'm the critic for Community and Social Services. Yep.
And do you prefer, just so I get it right and I don't keep using the wrong term, do you prefer Shadow Minister or critic?
Critic, because I mean, I'm sure they're the same thing. Shadow Minister, I feel like, someone's sneaking around, but yeah,
that sounds more fun. Critic. Okay, so critic for Community and Social Services.
Yep.
Let's talk about AISH.
Sure.
So there have been some pretty significant changes to how AISH is structured, and being that you're the critic for that ministry, you're probably one of the better people to kind of walk our audience through that. So prior to the election, Jason Kenney, in a fairly famous Facebook video, sort of dunked on then Minister Alfonso Beer about the suggestion that Jason Kenney was looking at making changes to AISH, and he made a big deal about the fact that he voted for the bill that the NDP put forward, indexing AISH to inflation. There have been some changes. So since the UCP government has taken office, can you walk us through what those changes are?
Sure. So there have been a number of changes so far. I expect there are more coming. And the reason I say that is that I've seen their budget projections. And so I see their budget projections for income support and AISH, which are both like income replacement programs. Income support is sort of people that aren't on AISH yet or have significant barriers to work. Lots of disabled people are sitting there as well. And so we saw their budget projections. They're not the growth over the next few weeks. Sorry, I just adopted a cat and he's really vicious. So he just bit me. So I think that we know the budget projections aren't going to meet the need. And so we know approximately how much the programs grow each year. And these programs are not going to meet those needs. Significant cuts, like income support, I think is getting cut by 2023 to like $24 million, like huge cuts. So what we've seen is they came in and, started the lying and saying, we're not cutting AISH, we're preserving it, richest benefits in the country, which is not true, but they did cut AISH. So what they did is they de-indexed. So what should have been happening is every year in January, monthly benefits would go up by approximately $30, based on what inflation was. So AISH recipients already lost $30 a month last January. And again, in January, it'll be another $30. So about $60 a month they'll be losing. So that is a cut. So they did that. And then they decided, without consultation or talking about it, we just found out, they decided to change the way that AISH recipients and income support recipients are paid, or their money's deposited. So it used to be that people would get their funds a few days before the end of the month to give them time to buy a bus pass, pay the rent, all of those things. And, for people living on AISH, they'll tell you right away, like towards the end of the month, there's nothing left. There's literally nothing left. And so they decided to move it to the 1st, which is a gong show. And at the same time, they decided to move everybody to direct deposit. Now, I get that part, the electronic deposit, but moving that many people in that short of a time span isn't realistic. So you've got like 70,000 people on AISH, probably got about 60,000 people on income support. So to try to do that, and then add on top of that a pandemic. So all of these things are happening at the same time. People are not getting their deposits on time. Many are, but some people are not. NSF charges, late fees for rent, threats of eviction, all of those things. Then, you've heard over the last month or so, you've heard these just ridiculous statements being made by ministers and the premier about, well, maybe people on AISH aren't disabled enough, or we should really look at that, or, everything's on the table. We haven't decided. And what that has done is just created an incredible amount of panic and fear. And this is a group of people that live really difficult, challenging existences sometimes. And poverty does that. It's really isolating. It's hard to manage. And these comments are just so out of touch. It just sort of brought home to me how disconnected these people are from what's going on in real time, in real life. And so you've just seen this just sort of degradation of this program, and nobody knows what they're doing. They keep saying, well, we've been transparent, we're reviewing the program. Well, whatever, that doesn't matter. They're reviewing everything. They're constantly reviewing and creating panels. What people need during a pandemic and during normal times is clear communication. What are you doing? What can we expect? How can we participate? When will this be over? And we're not getting any of that. So we're just seeing a lot of panic.
The communication part has been particularly intriguing because it seems like even within the government, there's some debate or interpretation as to what the plan is. A couple of weeks ago, we saw the Minister of Community and Social Services, Rajan Sani, respond to I think it was the Calgary Herald reported that, in fact, the government was looking at significant cuts to AISH. And she came out and said, no, that's not true at all. We're looking at efficiencies, which is a bit of a double-edged word to use. The AISH community obviously got quite upset. And the next day she came out and did there will be no cuts to AISH, trust me. I think it was 4 days later, Premier Kenney said, well, like you said, they might not be disabled enough. And I'm not certain, maybe you can help me. I don't know what experience Mr. Kenney is drawing from to make the determination of what counts as disabled, because my understanding of the AISH application process is that it is extremely challenging for anybody to get on. So much so that I believe in 2015, the Auditor General said, this is insanity. You guys have to fix this. So, I mean, Jason Kenney's executive issues manager, Matt Wolf, I think may have tipped the hand a little bit when he put out a tweet talking about what would largely be historically referred to as invisible disabilities, where he said, people with anxiety and ADHD, they're not that disabled. They shouldn't be on this program. And I think that betrays, like you said, a lack of understanding. Has there been any sort of conversation or communication between yourself and the ministry in regards to what direction? Is there any sort of effort to make this a bipartisan piece?
No, absolutely zero effort. They don't want to hear from us at all. In fact, I would add, they don't really want to hear from Albertans. I mean, they create their panels, they stack them, they send out surveys with questions that are absolutely ridiculous and misleading. And it's really just to give themselves cover to do whatever they plan on doing. And I think, somebody like Matt Wolf online, firing out these comments about questioning the depth or the reality of someone's disability, that's not by accident. This is happening on purpose. This is a government that is driven by some kind of strange ideology that I don't understand. But they are set. This is what austerity looks like. This is what an austerity budget looks like. And we are just starting. That's the part that really, that's the part that really frightens me, is that we are just beginning down this path. And then every time something happens, you'll get a minister trotted out to say, oh no, we care about people with disabilities. We're just reviewing, and trust us. You have to earn trust. That must be earned. And this has not been earned. We've been lied to. This is a corrupt government. They demonstrated it time and time again, fired the guy investigating them. They lie, they spin, they talk about efficiencies, which means, in government speak, cuts. They talk about sustainability, government speak, often cuts. I mean, it's just constant spin and lies when what people want is be honest. If you are going to cut the program, if you are going to change the eligibility, show your work. Show us the data. Show us the work that says this is a problem. We need to address this problem. Show us the roadmap. How is that going to play out? What steps will you take to evaluate the program and then make changes with the goal that nobody will be harmed? Because there are a lot of really, really vulnerable people who rely on this income support, like AISH and income support. And this government has really got to do something differently because they are failing horribly.
One of the things that struck me particularly hard was over the last couple of weeks, we get a lot of DMs from people, and as I'm sure you get way more, but we've gotten some DMs from people that have been extremely difficult to know how to handle, and B, know what to do with. The number of tweet threads, Facebook posts, just general social media posts that I've seen and that we've had forwarded to us, where AISH recipients are openly talking about self-harm, and up to and including suicide, as a direct result of the way that not just the cuts, I don't think it's just the cuts, but the way that the government is choosing to communicate with recipients of AISH and people who are relying on the government to get by. Do you have any sense that any of these people who are making these decisions and writing these Facebook posts and writing these tweets have any awareness of the gravity of the situation and the stakes that they're playing with?
I would hope that they do. You talk about government that is putting out these posts, like,
yeah. So it's an incredibly dissonant message for the minister to come up and say, "I got you, trust me," and then 4 days later for the premier to say, well, maybe not. We'll see. Some of you guys are freeloaders. We're going to do what we do.
I think they're out of touch. They're obviously out of touch. They're not listening to all Albertans. I think they're listening to some people. I don't know precisely who those people are, but they are completely out of touch. If they knew what life was like sort of on the ground for people, they would not be sending these messages that are incredibly harmful. I mean, like I said, you got 70,000 people on AISH. You got like 60,000 people on income support. You got everything from people with intellectual disabilities to people with chronic mental illnesses. You've got people that are diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. So people that have terminal illnesses get on AISH as well if they don't have any other source of income. You've got people with brain injuries. You've got, just every disability and combination of disability that you can imagine. And so life is a struggle. In an inaccessible world where it's hard to afford anything, life is a struggle for these folks. And to look at a government that is supposed to represent you and be there for you, especially during a public health emergency, when you are looking to them for leadership and for help, to be getting this is it's just beyond a slap in the face. It is just like an epic failure of leadership, and not to mention dangerous. Now, do I think there are a lot of people on those benefits that self-harm or that end their lives because their disability or mental illness or the stress is too much? Of course. We hear about it. Of course. I think back to different jobs before this job, different jobs. I've known too many people that were AISH recipients that, that was a choice that they made for themselves. And, we don't have clear stats. So government's always willing to tell us about growth. Well, AISH, we get this many more people on AISH and every year, but they don't tell us about the other end. They don't tell us about how many people we lose. How many hundreds or how many thousands of people have we lost on income support and AISH that, that doesn't get reported. So, not only is it their tweets and threads and posts are clueless because they're really not based in evidence and data, but they're beyond heartless. They're actually dangerous.
One of the things that has struck me particularly about the whole conversation around AISH is that I can kind of sort of wrap my head around the idea that there are always efficiencies to be found. There's in any bureaucracy, especially in an evolving technological world that we live in, there's always going to be a smarter way to do things. And I don't think that it's bad to pursue those sorts of efficiencies. I do not for one second believe that the efficiencies are going to be found in restricting the number of people on AISH or decreasing the amount that they receive every month. And one of the challenges that we've had on the show is that a lot of the people who are on AISH are in an extremely difficult position because of their disability that has led them to be on AISH. They're in an extremely hard position to advocate for themselves, because the challenge that we've run into is that there are absolutely legitimate grievances, but those grievances are being filtered through the lens of whatever disability these people are suffering from. And that creates what I'll call noise. And that noise makes it very difficult for a normal non-disabled, I don't know, I'm probably offending a bunch of people right there, a normal person to look at that story that these folks are telling and go, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense, because of that added noise from the disability. Do you have any ideas for how people on AISH, or how people who have family members on AISH, or people who are just outraged at how, frankly, un-Albertan this path is that the government's leading us down, how can they effectively advocate for themselves? And do you think it's even possible for anybody to advocate for themselves with this particular government, given their decision matrix?
Yes, I do. I think it's very possible. And I think that we all have the power to fire them in 2023. So that's a little bit more down the road, but that's how we flex our muscles, is we say, this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. And so, in so many ways, that we vote them out. That's a long-term plan. In the interim, I think that it's really important that people get organized. And I think even in the disability community, which, as you noted, is very diverse, that they are organizing. So you have self-advocates, maybe their focus is, people with developmental disabilities. You have people with physical disabilities starting to organize and get vocal. You have people that are on the autism spectrum, or neurodiverse or neurodivergent. And I struggle with labels sometimes too, because they do change. And so I usually just ask people, what word should I use? But people are organizing. And I think that, if you had to find a good thing about what we're living through, it is that people are realizing that politics is very personal. And that so the decisions that are made in the Alberta legislature on behalf of Albertans, and not to forget, we represent people, those decisions that are being made are hurting people on a very basic level, in a very personal way. And so I think people are understanding that and organizing. And, I and my colleagues are doing everything we can to amplify voices. So less about us, more about, you need to listen. Here's what this person is saying. Here's what this community is saying. But I think more than anything, instead of always looking at what can we cut and how can we find efficiencies and be sustainable, that we're looking at it wrong. It's just constantly going backwards, where we need to focus forward and know that when we invest in people properly, all people, and that includes people with disabilities, when we invest in education that's accessible, we invest in post-secondary that's accessible, we invest in apprenticeship opportunities, we invest in loans for small businesses run by people with disabilities, we create jobs not just for all Albertans, but specifically for Albertans with disabilities. When we start to make these investments, we will start to see some better solutions. But we have failed to do that. And we are seeing over the last year and a half with the UCP is just getting worse. And so, they like to call us fear mongers. Oh my God, the NDP. But we've been saying it. We knew this was coming. We see it. We see their budget documents. I mean, we're not making it up. We're just going by their own work, is that this is austerity. This is what austerity budgets looks like. And this is how people are hurt. And why? Because at the very beginning, before they even knew what was really going on, they decided to cut, to reduce corporate income, corporate taxes for already very profitable corporations. And then that was just opened the door for all of these other decisions about where Albertan resources would be invested. And they are not for Albertans. They are absolutely not. We've seen it. We've seen jobs leaving. Seen companies leaving. The latest one is to over $7 billion to really back a pipeline that's really dependent on Trump being reelected. Like, come on. Like, you have got people that are hurting here. We are losing jobs. We are shedding jobs where our economy feels like it's in free fall. And we're continuing to look outside and to look at this small group that is really benefiting from this decision, from these decisions. And so, I'm very worried about the path that we're on, that is austerity. And I know that I'm not alone.
One of the things that's sort of in that forward-thinking piece, one of the things that's particularly striking to me, I was checking to see what your coffee cup said.
Zero Fox given.
It's not the other one.
No, I've got the other one.
One of the things that's particularly striking to me is there seems to be a complete disconnect from the notion that when a government chooses to properly fund people who don't have the means to take care of themselves because of disability or whatever, there's a very real argument, I think, to be made. And I would say that the data backs me on this, that the more that you take care of these people, the more savings the taxpayer sees at the end. I did the math a little while ago on what it costs for somebody who's on AISH, who's not getting the supports that they need, either because of their medication or what have you, and them needing to call an ambulance and go to the emergency room to get taken care of because that's what they need today. And the cost of one trip to the hospital for somebody on AISH, even if they just go to the emergency room, get treated in the emergency room and are discharged with little to no diagnostics being done, is almost what they get a month. And so if we were to provide appropriate supports and appropriate healthcare for these folks, to make sure that to try to make sure that they don't need to access those emergency pathways, and there's plenty of other emergency pathways that they need to access that don't include ambulances and hospital trips, we would actually be saving money in the long term. And I don't understand why a government that is presenting itself as being the fiscally responsible is pursuing this path that is ultimately going to end up costing more in the long run.
Mm-hmm. No, and it's always, we're being fiscally responsible. There's nothing fiscally responsible about what they're doing. And you're right, is that when you invest in people, obviously you see the personal growth and wellness, but there is a cost savings to it, whether it's in health, whether you're reducing the amount of time people spend in hospital or trips to the hospital, in terms of unemployment and employment. There's so many things. People don't end up in jail as often. We've got a lot of people, thousands of people, Albertans, no fault of their own, have a label of fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, right? These are really significant disabilities. And if they are, a lot of times the people are not supported properly, they do end up in jail. They do end up sort of involved with law enforcement and the justice system. And all of that is very expensive. But when you invest in people so that they are living safely, they live in a safe place, they have enough to feed themselves, they're eating healthy. So it's preventative healthcare in a way. All of these things are cost savings, but more than that, it's about it's just about dignity. It's allowing people, all of us, to live with dignity. And I think, we are only as strong as our weakest members. And when we bring everybody up, we all benefit. We just become a stronger community. I think we all know that at our core when we look around our own lives, and we can see that the benefit of investing in people. So I think, I am worried a great deal. I think this government doesn't look at long-term success or long-term growth. I think they look in terms of election cycles. This is a government very focused on power. And obviously with all of their appointments, the cronyism and all of that, this is about playing for a base of support and to their donors and friends. And we see that all the time, from their appointments to, the guy who stepped aside for Kenny gets a plum job in Texas or wherever he is. He has no experience to be there other than he gave up his seat. Let's be honest. He was an MLA. I've worked with him. Nice guy, smart guy. I'm not saying he's not, but he has no business being there. And then they have the nerve to come out and say, oh, no, he was just the best person for the job. Well, come on. Albertans are smart. They can see this. And they want transparency, and that's not what they're getting.
One of the concerns that I have with the way that they seem to run things is that I worry that they're doing real, potentially long-term damage to the very fiber of what it means to be Albertan. I take a look at the moments in my life that I have been proudest to be an Albertan, and things like the 2013 floods, the way that the entire province came together to support the people affected by that, things like the Fort Mac wildfires. I'm on record in saying this in plenty of places, but the fact that one of the logistical problems that we had to deal with during the fires was, where do we put all the donated stuff? I think speaks to what the real spirit of Albertans are. And it seems like this government is moving in a direction that's opposite from that. And that sets a cultural tone that I'm really quite concerned about. But going back to the advocacy piece, and the importance of the healthy eating as a preventative measure, you're undertaking a bit of an awareness campaign right now. Can you tell our audience a little bit about what that is? And I mean, we're 9 days into it, I believe. So how's that? What is it, and how is it going?
Sure. Well, what it is I am living on keeping my expenses to $16.85 for the month of October.
Where does that number?
Sorry?
Where does that number come from?
So that is the maximum benefit for AISH.
Perfect.
So I get asked, I'm a person of privilege. I have a job. I didn't have to worry about losing my job during the pandemic. I earn a really good wage as an MLA. I have lots of benefits. I am a person of privilege. And so my job is, I'm tasked with going to the legislature and to debate and to vote on legislation and changes that impact people that live in poverty, people that need AISH, people that need income support. And so I thought this was a way to better understand the realities. Plus, I get asked a lot, I'm sure other people do, other politicians do too, but I don't even know how many times people have said to me, you should try living on it. Like, really, you should try. Like, it's not easy, you should try it. And so I've heard that a lot. So I decided to try this, and I wanted to be really clear that I'm not doing this for a stunt. I really am not. I know that I'm a person of privilege, and I know after 1 month I get to go back to that life of privilege. But what I wanted to understand are some of the barriers and the realities that people tell me about every day. I hear from people every single day, lots of people every day. And so I'm understanding a lot. I'm learning things. I thought I would learn certain things, but I'm learning things that I didn't expect. A lot of things about the stress of what I imagine people live in this kind of poverty. Like, there's no breathing room in your budget. Now, I live in a small apartment style condo, so it was easy for me to do because my expenses aren't very high, and probably the same as about a rental, let's say. But then I decided I have to park my car because I can't afford a vehicle and gas and insurance on this. So I have a bus pass and I have about $180 for groceries, and I have a telephone, and, like, the computer's not mine, and, I needed internet for work and things. So I'm trying, I'm doing my best. I have a group of 4 people that are AISH recipients that I spoke with before doing it, just to make sure that, I wasn't going to do something that was harmful to people. And then I meet with them once a week. So they're sort of like, the boss. And so they're the ones like, make sure your freezer's empty before you start. And you better not like have a stockpile of supplies, right? So we just talk. I've learned so much about everything from, like, we're going into Thanksgiving. If I had to buy the turkey and all of those things, I couldn't do it on this budget that I'm on. I mean, thankfully I'm going to my daughter's home, but just all of these things. And then thinking, oh my God, what about Christmas? What is that like for people? And I've actually had people tell me that they've had to take out loans for Christmas, those high interest loans, because you can't get sort of the traditional products when you're on AISH or income support. That's often not a reality. And really, they're only trying to get a few $100s to buy a meal and maybe buy a gift for their child. And this is the reality. And so, even riding the bus during a pandemic. So you've got thousands of people that ride the bus that are, some of them, at more risk. If they do contract the virus, negative outcome. And so all of these things I'm really starting to see and understand a little bit better. And I hope that helps me as I debate the things that I know are coming. So that's why I decided to do it.
Okay. Moving away from AISH for now, we may or may not come back to it. I never know what direction these things go. But moving away from AISH for now, you are, for the record, our first sitting MLA that we've had on the show. So congratulations for that distinction.
Right.
But it seems, one of the things that I'd like to ask you about is it seems like despite the promises of restoring decorum to the legislature, it seems like it's moved in the polar opposite direction. There's certainly no shortage of examples, whether it's the third-party advertiser signs in the windows of the legislature, whether it's the clothing that's being worn in the legislature advertising that same organization, whether it's the removal of some people from the legislature, which was a stunning video to watch. It seems like from an outsider's standpoint, it seems like the environment in the legislature, which is one of the more important buildings in our province, I would argue, has turned more toxic. Can you speak to how accurate that perception of mine is? And yeah,
it has definitely changed. I mean, it's not your imagination. It has changed. So this is, I'm going into my 6th year as there, and it has definitely changed. So is that the place is always sort of combative and, heated debate and heckling, which tends, good heckling is based on debate. I mean, it's based on whatever policy or whatever you're doing, but it has gone into this really toxic place. And that is all about leadership, right? So it comes from the top, and the person at the top is setting the tone. So the person at the top who said, we're going to raise the decorum bar, that was baloney. That was absolute baloney. And we're seeing it play out all the time. Now, I don't have data to back up what I think, but I feel like some of the harshness is really targeted at women. I think that we get a lot of it, so we'll be debating or asking a question in question period, and, you get the same blah, blah, blah spin answer. And, we might say something, and then all we get back from them is, oh, look, it's the angry NDP, or, oh, look, they're so angry. Yeah, fear and smear. And it's usually about women. And it's usually when they can't answer a hard question that that's where they go. But, this is all about leadership. It's about their house leader alone is like, I don't even have words. Honestly, don't even have words. Like, I have seen some stuff in there that I can't even share. But like one example that one night we were debating a health bill, and it happens a lot. Like that wasn't unusual that it was happening, because it happens a lot. And it was just bad that night, and I just had enough. And so I was hoping that the speaker would intervene and stop it, because it's targeted harassment. It would not be tolerated in any other workplace, but seems to be tolerated in the legislature. So, I brought it up, got kicked out for not apologizing for it. That's a whole other ridiculous situation. But, my point is, I think that we need a member to member harassment policy. We don't have any protection in there. We don't have any vehicle. The speaker is, supposed to be nonpartisan, but come on. So I have met a couple of times with the speaker who has not, sure, he listened, but hasn't, whatever. I'm not even going to go there. So we'll just keep pushing. And, I would like to see something change. And I think if Kenny was serious at all about raising the decorum, then he would speak to his house leader. But I see the way they interact. I see the way they set the tone, and they lie. That they said they were going to raise the bar. They lied. They are not.
Unless I'm mistaken, Mr. Kenny was the one who brought the earplugs into the legislature.
Correct.
So in regards to setting the bar, that's a real easy bar to skip over, or just roll over. I'd like to get into the idea of the harassment of women to some degree, and it seems like, again, from an outsider's perspective, it seems like it's only escalating, and it's particularly stunning to me that the leadership does not. I mean, it certainly seems with some things, the earplugs, that kind of stuff. I can chalk some of that up as to just ugly political theater. But I think that there have been some things that definitely qualify as harassment. We certainly saw a particularly appalling example of this week, where the Premier's executive issues manager decided that he was going to go after a private citizen who's leaving the province soon anyways, because of the harassment that she's endured. And in his harassment of her, he included pictures of her children. And that to me is a low that I don't know that I've ever seen in this province before. And we've got some lows when it comes to the political theater that happens. But it's stunning to me that we're at a place where, I mean, you were talking about privilege earlier, middle-aged white guys, so I got the corner on that. But it's stunning to me that we're at a place where an agent of the government can openly, publicly harass and include pictures of a private citizen's children, and doesn't appear to receive any condemnation, not only from the Premier's office, but unless I'm mistaken, there are female members of the UCP. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to wrap my head around how you've got this entire mechanism that's just staying silent. How much, and personal opinion here, but how much responsibility do you think the Premier bears for the behavior of his various issues managers? There's two in particular that come to my mind because I interact with them on a semi-regular basis because they love to do drive-bys on me. But how much responsibility does the Premier bear for their behavior? And as an extension of that, how much responsibility does the caucus bear? And does it get to a place when the behavior gets as egregious as it is that there needs to be questions about not the elected officials, but the partisans who support the UCP? because it's getting to a place when it comes to the harassment, and particularly the harassment of women, that it's scary now.
It is. And I think what 100% belongs to Kenney, 100%. He hired these people just like he hired a racist speechwriter. He keeps them on. If he didn't want them there, he would fire them or tell them to stop. He does not. So this is 100% on him. This is all him setting the tone. This is what he's doing. This is him. I think what Matt Wolf has done to women, particularly recently, is so disgusting. To attack people is one thing. To attack their children and to get this angry horde rebel type mob that you know is coming, to know that you are doing that is quite another. It is disgusting. Every single caucus member, every single UCP caucus member that doesn't say something or stand up or demand change is complicit, and they wear this too. As far as the women in the caucus, I'm thoroughly disappointed and have been for a while. I mean, after I got kicked out for not apologizing for saying I was being harassed, literally 2 UCP women stood up, I think, and gave little statements about how really I need to get, thicker skin, basically. I mean, it was just stupid. But I think, we have a status of women minister that has been a dismal failure and disappointment since the beginning.
Well, she's really, really good at photo ops, though.
She is, and she can, she's a pretty good singer. I'll give her that. But she, it's just, she'll say, oh no, we use the gender-based analysis when we look at our policies. And so people have asked her, prove it, show your work. There's nothing. You can tell by the policies that are rolling out that work has not been done. That's not true. It's not genuine. We are failing women in the economic recovery plan. I mean, I think they had like 12 people on their economic recovery panel, the Harper panel, that would, I think, like maybe, I don't know, 3 to 5 are women. Like, it's just ridiculous. Just everything from, just the dismal failure to invest in childcare. I think we're all pretty clear that it is an important piece of economic recovery is to invest there. We need women working. We want women back in the workforce, and it's just a failure. So this is on Jason Kenney and all of his ministers and all of the people that choose to be silent and get in line and do what they're told. It is wrong. They are failing Albertans, and they're going to find out in 2023 what it's like to be fired for failing to do your job. And so it's horrible to watch, and it's really sad that we're losing good people. They're literally moving away because this environment is too toxic. We're losing like so much talent everywhere, doctors and professionals and young people. And, on a personal level, my son's a paleontologist, so he's a scientist. He has a PhD. He's been a fellow at the university. His new wife is also a scientist and teaches at the university, and they're leaving next week to the UK. They're going to work there, partly because an opportunity opened up, but partly because they don't see a future for themselves here. So post-secondary education is just taking hit after hit. And, clearly science isn't hugely respected by this current government. So, I think it's affecting all of us on a really personal level, from losing our doctors in our communities to friends that are leaving to just all of that. And we're losing so much potential. And this belongs squarely on Jason Kenney, his cabinet ministers, and his caucus.
Okay. There's one other topic that I wanted to get your perspective on. I have my own, but I'd like to get your thoughts on it, because there's another thing that this government did that's a pretty major departure from how your previous government did things. So the legislative session starts up again soon, if I'm correct.
Yeah, on the 20th.
Okay. How excited are you for your first interview with the new accredited journalist for the legislature, Mr. Bext?
That's not going to happen ever. I will not They are, they're not journalists. I'll just leave it there. I would never, ever. I mean, he's followed people around and he skulks around whatever the legislature. I think it's. I'm stunned actually that they're allowed access there. If you look at their body of work and the dangerous things that they've said and done, it's just shocking to me. Just like I would not, go on a certain radio show, let's say, where a certain radio person has clearly demonstrated that she provides a platform for whether it's white supremacy or racism or whatever it is. I'm not going to be part of that. I do not have to participate in that. And it's just unacceptable to me. And that's how we start to make change, right? It's sort of like this market-driven thing. Don't support it. Don't read it. Don't share it. Block it. And don't support it.
It's fascinating to me, particularly because I look at their work. I'll use that term.
Clickbait, you mean, to raise money? Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean that's fundamentally to me, and we're very clear on I'm very clear on my social media, and the show is very clear on its social media that we are not journalists. We don't pretend to be. We are commentators. We are satirists, and that's where it kind of stops. We like to make things accessible, but we're not journalists, and we're very, very quick to correct people on that. To me, I look at how what they do not only misrepresents the actual reality of the situations. Don't get me even started on the whole fake First Nations thing, because that's good Lord. But they actively try to influence the outcome of their stories, and they do harass people, they do bully people, they do misrepresent facts, and the scary thing to me, and the thing that I think highlights just how ridiculous things are right now, is they got accredited to cover the legislature. We hold ourselves to a higher standard than the Rebel. We could probably get accredited to the legislature using the same argument. We never ever will, to be clear. We have neither the time nor the inclination. But we use puppets sometimes. And the fact that a web series that occasionally uses puppets has a higher standard for what we do and what we talk about than an organization that is currently accredited to cover the legislature is just mind-blowing to me. And the fact that this government doesn't see that, and the damage that they're doing to the institution is I just can't wrap my head around it. So it's quite, I'm curious to see, I have to say, I'm curious to see how much time they're going to actually spend covering the legislature, because I don't think it's going to be very much. I think this was a performative exercise, and I think that their correspondents, personalities, let's call them personalities. I think that if they were to actually spend the proper time covering the legislature that the legislature deserves, they wouldn't be able to go to these little hate rallies and chase people down. And that's their bread and butter. So
totally. And, and they made, I think, Kenny and his people, cleared a path for them to be there, because there's a reason. I mean, there is a reason they want them promoting their message. Kenny knows what these people are. He knows that, they've employed people like, what's his name, Gavin McInnes, or that woman from Charlottesville. I mean, they know this. They know all of this, and they're quite comfortable. I mean, the guy he hired a published racist speechwriter. I mean, they know this. This is part of the plan. This isn't an accident. This is part of the plan. And, let's be honest, Rebel, they're not there to debate issues or to find a better way forward or to have a grown-up conversation about the path forward for our province. That's not what this is about. This is about, getting pictures and then adding your own spin to it. So people are outraged for no reason really, other than they're going to click on your link and donate to your site. That's what these people are about. it's just, it's irresponsible. It doesn't help us. It doesn't make lives better at all. I've been in some of their goofy, stupid videos that I'll tell you how I really feel about them. But, I can't remember what they were about. NDP MLA said this, blah, 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 and then I felt the horde, right? So I get the messages, you get the threats, you get, a picture of yourself with a bullet hole, and you're not from them, but from their crazy troll accounts that follow them. You get the name calling and the gross messages. And that's what that is. They know that happens, and that they willfully target people for that, and knowing that this will happen after the fact. Same with the government, same with people that troll Twitter and work for the Premier's office. They understand when you do this, when you target an individual person, there will be backlash. And so the example you gave earlier about Jillian, her children being included in a post, it wasn't an accident. They understand what they're doing. They've been doing this for a very long time. And so I think she's incredibly brave. I wish she wasn't leaving, but I understand it. But I think she's incredibly brave to stand up to this, to these people and say, that's unacceptable. And she's right. It is unacceptable. It has to be unacceptable.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you'd like our audience to know about what's going on in the legislature right now? Sort of what the plans are for the next legislative session? Anything else that you want to sort of tack on to the end of this? Because you've been very generous with your time, and I don't want to take so much of it.
No, so I wish I knew what was coming at the legislature, but they don't like to tell us ahead of time what legislation's coming. I think they even stopped giving us briefings, because that's how they roll. They're not really transparent, and whatever, they're intimidated by us knowing what's coming, I guess, or I don't know, somebody had a hissy fit. But I really don't know what's coming in terms of legislation. Certainly I have some ideas, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. But I know that we've all been working really hard since the last session, which seems like just yesterday. But I think we're very focused on recovery. I think we're focused on the future. We're focused on getting through this properly, because I think we're really in it right now, and we're starting to see what's going on. We're seeing how much people are struggling. They've lost work. Kids are staying home from school. Teachers are struggling, nurses, doctors. I mean, we're very focused on all of that. So I think all of us are together to represent our constituents, but also the portfolios that we have that we're critics of. So we've been working hard to be ready. We've been talking to as many people as we can to get as much information as we can. And I expect it'll be another rough session. They tend to bring in a lot of legislation and pack a lot of things in. So it makes it tough for us to go through, but we will do our best. And what we're getting really good at, and I'm super excited about, and I love it, is that we're not just critiquing what they're showing us and talking about, is we're proposing some really innovative things. And I think that you will see a lot more of that coming. So we've been working really hard on putting together some ideas for people to consider, to say there is another way forward, and here's what we think it should be. So certainly I look forward to Albertans being able to see some of that work that we've done.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you again for being willing to sit down and chat. This has been a really enjoyable conversation for me, and I hope that we can have you revisit some of this stuff down the road, because I have no doubts that there are going to be, unfortunately, more changes to AISH. And I think that's something that more Albertans need to be aware of, because I think it's a poorly understood program. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
As always, if you appreciate the kind of content that we're trying to produce here at The Breakdown, please consider signing up as a monthly supporter at our Patreon site at www.patreon.com/thebreakdownab. And if you're listening to the audio version of our podcast, please consider leaving us a review and a rating. And don't forget to like and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all at The Breakdownab. Thank you for your attention.